This is the way. Oh, ho, ho. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tagar. Welcome to our 260th Acolyte actualizing episode of Mando Vision. Now, I'm your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. What a day. What a day. Reach out to us on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show at mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, friends, it is Wednesday, June 5th, which means it's the day after the two-part premiere episode of Star Wars The Acolyte, and we are here to talk about it. And if you remember some of the things I might have said last week on our last episode, I was very much under the impression that I would be able to watch those episodes and do a podcast at the same exact time. I was completely unaware that they were doing a specific time drop for the episodes of 6 p.m. West Coast time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And so that threw me for a bit of a loop as I was prepared to watch the episode at midnight earlier that night until I saw the little thing on Disney Plus. I was like, I made a mistake. So instead, I had to wait until almost 10 o'clock on Tuesday night to watch the episode because 6 o'clock, things are going on in this house. I was unfortunately not able to put life on hold for the basically roughly an hour and a half, 2 hour block of time to watch the premiere of the Acolyte when it first dropped. So that meant watching it later into the night and then just being too gosh darn tired to record a podcast afterwards. But we're here now. I've had some time to sort of think about things in the Acolyte, process some things, some of my thoughts on the Acolyte, and I think now is the time for us to go ahead and talk about it. We're going to try to split the episode up pretty evenly amongst the two episodes, keep them kind of separate for the sake of continuity, if you will. So I think it's only fair that we go ahead and get into the let's just give the particulars of episode 1 right now so that we can have our conversation. Because, listen, I got a lot to say. There's a lot to talk about already amongst the fan base, amongst the critics. It's a whole thing with Star Wars Acolyte already. So, Star Wars The Acolyte, Episode 1, Lost and Found, written and directed by the show's creator, Leslie Headland. Our primary cast for this episode, Amanda Stenberg is, well, we'll talk about that later, but Amanda Stenberg, Lee Jung Jae, Charlie Bennett, Daphne Keane, Rebecca Henderson. We got Carrie Ann Moss as our primary actors in this episode. Let's go ahead. You know what that means. It is time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go. This is the way. So this morning as I woke up, I took the opportunity to peruse the internet, which, as we know, is a very dangerous thing to do. But I wanted to kind of get a feel for where the fan base is at with this show. And so far, the fan base is all over the map. All over the map with this show. Many people seem to be enjoying it thus far. It does have its detractors, though. And I've tried to kind of pull apart the negative feedback on the show and kind of get to the reason why. And it's so far, the negative reviews I've seen don't seem to have much to do with casting or gender or racial issues, luckily. That's the good news. A lot of it seems to have to do with attacking the storytelling and the production design on the show. It is a show, to me, that looks very Star Wars-like. But yeah, it does. I think it does lack a little bit of that cinematic gravitas that we are so familiar with for Star Wars. But I don't have an issue with that, and perhaps it's because I grew up watching shows like Star Trek, where, it was all about stretching that dollar and getting the most out of it that you could. And I think The Acolyte looks pretty darn good for a television series where they are going to spend the money when they need to spend the money in the right places for the right VFX shots when they need it. Because I suspect visual effects in this series will ramp up over time. And that's a little bit where I'd rather they spend their money as opposed to building some elaborate set for them just to run through, and it's just background. I think the production value on the show is pretty darn good. So that being said, let's talk about the episode in particular. Let's talk about it's been described as a twist, and I think it's not necessarily a twist because we were just not aware of the big added element to the story. We were seeing our teaser trailers, we were watching our full-blown trailers, we're getting a little bit of the casting information, the character names, and all these things. And there's one piece of information that was omitted, and that was the fact that May, who is the one hunting and killing the Jedi, is in fact a twin, has a twin sister named Osha, who we meet in this episode. And some people have come out and attacked that element of the story. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, that might be one of the most Star Wars things in The Acolyte is twins, Force-sensitive twins, and now we are able to explore the concepts of light and dark with these two twins. And again, to me, that is essentially a very, very Star Wars aspect of getting into the Force as it is. Excuse me. So I like it. Again, I don't think it's a twist necessarily. I just think it was a piece of information that we didn't have access to, and that I actually really, really liked when we have that moment and we meet Osha for the first time after me seeing May kill Carrie-Anne Moss. So there's a lot going on as far as the characters go. There is a backstory that we don't have yet. We get lots of hints over these first two episodes about what occurred on Brendok 16 years ago, as we sort of kind of piece together the history of these sisters and their interactions with the four Jedi Masters on Brendok, and why May is attempting to kill them, and why Osha is now coming back to the fold, why she left the Jedi Order, why she was even taken to the Jedi Order when she was, because as we find out in this first episode, she was, like Anakin Skywalker, too old to begin the training in theory, but was allowed to anyways. So there's a lot of mystery there. But the central mystery revolves around what occurred on Brendok. Why is May trying to kill the four Jedi Masters, Master Sol, Master Kelnaka, Master Indira, who we see die in the beginning, and then Master Torben, who we'll meet in episode 2. So that is a central mystery of the show, as well as the mystery of who is the Master, who is May and Acolyte 4. We only had a glimpse of a Sith red lightsaber and our helmeted villain in the closing moments of episode 1. But I think episode 1's a very solid beginning point for the show. I very much enjoyed the opening sequence on Ueda, where May engages in combat with Master Indira. Now, I'm a little thrown off because at the end, as we're sort of being introduced to our Sith member, whether it's the Master or the Apprentice, we don't know just yet. But he talks about killing Jedi without weapons, and that seems to be May's thing. But I still think daggers are weapons, right? She's got these cool throwing daggers that she's using. They're still kind of a weapon. I don't know. It's not a blaster or a lightsaber, obviously, but I suspect we'll learn more about that as the series progresses. But I do like the idea that May has to sort of prove herself as capable of killing Jedi without having a blaster or a lightsaber in her hands. The combat between her and Indira at the beginning of the show is, I think, very, very good. We saw a lot of it in the trailers, and I don't think we can be too surprised that Carrie-Anne Moss doesn't make it out of that opening combat alive, though I suspect we may get to see more Carrie-Anne Moss as a Jedi Master in the inevitable flashbacks to Brendok, when we have to get the origins of what the heck is going on, why are these Jedi Masters, what did they do that has angered May so much and put her down this path, and why did Master Sol think she was dead for so long? Again, there's a lot to pull apart here. And that's just the mystery central to May and Osha. This has nothing to do with the other mystery of the Sith, which I suspect we will also be getting into before too very, very long in the episode. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about our Jedi in this episode because, well, we are introduced to the Jedi of the High Republic era, and it is a era that has been getting covered in books and comics for about 3-ish years now. And maybe you're familiar with the look, maybe you're not, but I am a big fan of the High Republic stuff, mostly because I like seeing the Jedi kind of at the top of their game, and that's essentially what you're getting here with this batch of Jedi. But that's not to say that there isn't a decent amount of arrogance and hubris on the part of the Jedi, because that's kind of what we see them morphing into as we roll into the prequel era Jedi, right? Like they kind of have been unopposed for a little while now, and they're kind of feeling themselves a little bit, and you see that in the prisoner interactions in this episode, that they just kind of like pull information out of people's heads without really, waiting for them to give them the answers to anything. It is the Jedi are already sort of on a bad track. They just don't realize it yet. But we get very different personality types of our Jedi in this episode. We are introduced in live action to the first time to Vernestra Rowe, a character created in the beginning of the High Republic publishing initiative in the novels and in the comics. Has quickly become a fan favorite character, so seeing her come to the live action has been pretty cool so far. I can't wait to see her spring to live action. I suspect we'll also see Master Yoda at some point in this series because he is around during this era. And obviously, we notice the difference in the Jedi robes and the stylings of Jedi attire. A little bit different than what we are used to seeing. But again, I think that's a fun visual cue. One of the elements that I'm enjoying so far about the Acolyte and this High Republic era is that, again, we're focused on the Jedi and the Jedi Order and a conspiracy kind of within the Order that we're trying to uncover. But we're also not, and this is something that I like. We're not really entrenched in the galactic politics of the time. We haven't been. We don't need to know who the chancellor is right now. There's no need to go to the Senate. There's no galactic political sphere that we have to navigate. It can just be Jedi doing Jedi business so far. Will that escalate? Will that change throughout the course of the series? I don't know, but I like that this decision in the storytelling allows us to focus on this Jedi mystery / conspiracy that we're trying to uncover here. To me, that's a big positive. I like the idea that we're getting into a story where we can kind of work with our characters a little bit more, as opposed to having to worry about what the Chancellor thinks or what the Senate thinks, or even what the Jedi Council thinks, because the Council has been referred to, but hey, we haven't had to see them just yet. So I really do like that aspect of it. We're introduced to Master Soul, who is a very different Jedi than what we've seen in the past. He emotes a lot. His emotions are on his face. He's not cold and calculating or any of those things. He talks about analyzing the past and not forgetting it so that he cannot repeat it. That's why when Jackie asks him about having holograms of his former Padawan, because she thinks that that's the road to attachment. And Jackie is a great character as well. His current Padawan, who seems to be very with things, as opposed to Yord Fondor, who is a sort of prototypical by the book Jedi, but maybe not the sharpest knife in the Jedi drawer. Yord is kind of shortchanged in these first 2 episodes. I'm not sure if his standing will improve in later episodes. He has a Padawan of his own, Tassi Loa, who we see in the first episode, but I don't believe we see in the second episode. So I'm sort of curious her status on things. But Jackie Lon is a Padawan that I'm fairly intrigued by so far. She seems very smart and very capable, and I can't wait to see how she gets involved in this story with Osha and May. So a lot going on there. And then we have our 4 Jedi that are involved in the conspiracy. We have Master Soul, Kalnaka, Indira, and Torben. Now, Indira and Torben, we don't get to meet them for too long before they are disposed of. Spoilers for episode 2 with Torben. But again, we're seeing the Jedi in a very different fashion, and that's something that I really, really liked. Now, I'd like to go back to when we meet May, because we meet a character who looks a lot like the person we just saw murder a Jedi, working as a mechanic on a Trade Federation craft, it would appear, and is referred to as a mechanic, and a mechanic that'll go out and do things. Now, I am curious. This is one of the curious aspects of this storyline to me, because feels like, why would the Trade Federation want to pay two beings to go out and do mechanics work when they could just have astro droids do it for them? Feels weird to me. Just saying. We obviously know the Trade Federation likes droids. Maybe at this point, they're not big pro droid people just yet. I don't know. It just seems interesting that the Trade Federation, who gives me the impression of being fairly tight-fisted, would want to pay beings to be their mechanics as opposed to just buying some droids to do the work for them. We already find out that the Trade Federation is not going to use any shields. Again, that's something that will change over time. But again, that's sort of a contradiction in that area there. But I did chuckle when the Nemoidian is talking about going to hyperspace and the mechanics are disposable and all these different things, and OSHA lets them know that hey, I can hear you. The channel's open. It was an amusing introduction to that character, and we find that OSHA is a very kind of light, effervescent character in this opening sequence here, at least until she's arrested by Yord, who comes because a person who matches her description was seen on Ueda killing a Jedi. Now, again, we haven't gotten the revelation just yet, though I think the audience is probably connecting the dots here of like, oh, there's clearly two of them. There must be a twin thing going on here. Or maybe you're thinking like a split personality thing for half a second. I don't know. I don't know. Because they do sort of like give you this little line of dialogue that like, hey, what I did on my day off is none of your business. And but it's very quickly pushed to the side. Especially once we cut to Coruscant and we go to Master Soul and we find out that this OSHA character has a sister who's been presumed dead. So this begins our mystery. This begins our introduction to these characters. I really much enjoyed the prison break sequence. I thought it was rather fun. And again, it shows us a lot about OSHA here in the beginnings that, again, she is, even though she left the Jedi Order for mysterious reasons that we don't know just yet, she still has a lot of those characteristics of wanting to do the right thing and to help people. And even though these people were prisoners of the Republic, she's not going to let them go down with the ship. So she's freeing them. And even the crazy one who, after he gets like the Dubnik thing taken off of him, just goes crazy and pushes her out of the way and steals the last of the escape pods with her still in the prison ship as it's going down. I also very much liked the prison droid, the sort of like a heavy guard that they had in place. I thought that was a cool looking droid design. Just kind of clomping around, had a very authoritarian feel to him. I dug that. So I liked that sequence quite a bit. And it's once we crash on Karlak that we begin to understand that that the situation with OSHA is far more complicated than we've been led to believe thus far. The flashbacks, the scene of herself and her sister as children running through these caverns, these ice caves. No, it's not even a cavern. It's like a canyon almost. And again, we're putting together this mystery as Jedi, as Master Soul is putting it together for us as well. Again, I liked this first episode. I don't think it's got the best pacing in the world, but it's a solid introduction to a new era of Star Wars, a bunch of new characters that I think have a lot of potential to be interesting, particularly the dynamic between all the different Jedi, right? I'm very interested in the fact that these Jedi seem to have very contrasting personalities, and I'm waiting to see how that all shakes out. Because again, Yord and Jeki do not seem to see eye to eye, yet she is a Padawan and he is a full knight. Yet her ideas are more embraced than his. I think that's a fun dynamic. I can't wait to see how that plays out more. Again, Master Soul is a very, very good character. We get to see him do some combat in the next installment. But I love the way that character emotes himself, the way he sort of conveys things across his face. Very expressive acting being done there by Jung-Jae Lee. Lee Jung-Jae, excuse me. And I like the potential there. I think in this first episode we get a lot of we see a lot of the potential here, and it ends on that note with May on that rocky shore, approaching the Sith, the mysterious Sith, whether it's the Master Apprentice, TBD, and getting that bit of dialogue about an acolyte kills without a weapon, and killing the dream of the Jedi. And these are all very Star Wars things, and I really enjoyed that part of this episode. Again, I think it does have some pacing issues. The way information comes out is a little bit, I don't want to say clunky, because I don't think it's clunky, but it wasn't the information didn't come out the way I sort of expected it to. And oftentimes that is a me problem. And I usually get that corrected when I watch the episodes again for a second or third time, where I'm like, okay, now the flow feels more in line with where my brain's at. So I am looking forward to rewatching the episode and kind of being able to just let it soak into me, as opposed to trying to watch it with a critical eye. So that being said, that is the first episode of The Acolyte. Now I think it's time to talk about episode 2. Episode 2, Revenge Justice. This is written by Jason Micallef, and Charmaine. Charmaine, I wrote your last name down so badly, I apologize. Charmaine DeGallic, I believe. And it's directed once again by the show's creator, Leslie Headland. This episode, the primary cast is basically the same, except we add in Mandy Jacinto as Kumar, I think I'm saying that correctly, who is a mysterious smuggler-like character who's aligned himself with May. But he seems to be a fascinating character in the sense that he's not a Force user. Yes, he seems to be allied with May, but is it for his own survival? Is it for some kind of financial gain? Or is this a character that's just trying to navigate a period in the Star Wars galaxy where the Jedi are on one side, almighty, all-powerful, lording that over everybody, versus the Sith, who he's somehow come into contact with, and he realizes that he is just a little bitty player in the galaxy between these two entities that are massive Force wielders. Now, that's something else that the trailer has teased to us, is that there will be multiple kinds of Force users in the show. Other beings who use the Force in different ways than the Jedi or the Sith, and the discussion of who has the ability, who has the right to wield such power. So that's an aspect of the show that I can only speculate on right now because we haven't gotten to it. But I do think it's an interesting avenue to take the show down for the remaining episodes of it. This episode of the show mostly takes place on the planet Olega. We go to a new Jedi temple, and we're following May as she has tracked down another one of the Jedi involved in some sort of conspiracy on Brendok back in the day that cost May her family, cost her sister, and ultimately separated these two sisters from each other. Now, remember what we've been told from Master Soul. He believed that May was killed in a fire. And fire seems to be the trigger here for Osha in a lot of senses. And how that's going to play out over the course of the series, I can't wait to see. I can't wait to explore that. But again, remember our characters are Osha and May are two sides of the same coin, right? Light and dark, yin and yang. I want to see that explored more fully. We get to see a little bit of Osha's craftiness now that she's aligned herself with the Jedi and trying to find her sister. Trying to pull a fast one on Kumar by pretending to be Osha. It doesn't last long. It doesn't go well for her in the ultimate scheme of things, but it's an interesting moment in the episode. I was also intrigued by this Master Torben, who has taken some sort of vow. He doesn't speak. He just is in a permanent state of meditation, has like some kind of force shielding around him that protects him from harm, from attack. We see May try to engage in combat with him, and it doesn't to ill effect. So this is a Jedi Master that she will have to kill without physicalness, right? Without his physicality. So Kumar's there to create a poison, and it's a poison that ultimately you find out is from Brendok when May analyzes it. And then the Jedi Master's decision, Torben's decision itself to take the poison and kill himself. This is all very interesting stuff to me, and I'm very. We need to know. We need to explore more of the secret. Like, what kind of secret could a Jedi keep that would have them so racked and consumed with guilt that suicide was the option they chose to take to deal with that guilt? And that's a concept of something that we've never seen before in Star Wars. A Jedi taking his own life in such a fashion. It hints at something more sinister at play on Brendok in the past between these Jedi Masters. But we haven't seen the same level of guilt from Sol. So I have to wonder about the level of involvement that Sol may have had in whatever Torben and Indira were involved in. And again, that is the central mystery of the show. It will play out over time, as will the mystery of the Sith. This episode just sort of furthers what we got established in episode 1. So is it redefining Star Wars as we know it? No, of course not. But it's furthering its story. It's furthering its mysteries. And again, still helping us get to understand and know these new characters in this new era that we are finally beginning to explore in live action. I have said it before, and I will say it again. I'm so happy that we are in a different era of Star Wars to play with. The dancing between the raindrops of continuity by staying in the Skywalker timeline is challenging at best. Shows like Ahsoka and The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett have sort of charted their own path in the period between Jedi and Force Awakens. But that's a limited window, and you're still dealing with a lot of the trappings of familiarity. What I really enjoy about the High Republic era is, the only familiarity is the broad strokes, right? It's like the Republic, the Jedi, Sith are kind of on the down low. And then, like, the rest of the galaxy is wide open to explore. James Mangold is supposed to be doing that Origin of the Jedi movie, another time period, hundreds of thousands of years potentially removed from the Skywalker timeline. It's wide open. It's rife for possibilities, and ripe for possibilities, and opportunities to tell amazing stories. So I'm very happy we're in this era. I think some audience members need to keep that in mind as we progress with this storyline, because again, I think some people are looking at it as like a prequel to the Phantom Menace, and it's like no, not so fast, my friends. They may connect some threads, they may show the path that the Republic and the Jedi are ultimately on, but I think looking at this as like a prequel to the Phantom Menace would be insane. So don't do it. Do not do it. So again, back into episode 2. We're getting to see more of that dynamic. I love the holocom between Sol and Vernestra Rowe because Vern is just kind of laying it down, right? It's like, no, you got to come back here and talk to the council. You can't just be out there all willy-nilly. So it's showing us a little bit of a different style that the Jedi Council has in this era. Like, they have a lot more weight, it seems like. A lot less Jedi going rogue on them. But there's also a lot more Jedi mysticism that we need to understand. Again, Master Torben is in this meditation sphere, and in this new High Republic era, if you've read the books and the comics, you find out that the Jedi often choose different paths to be on. They can be wayfinders. They can be out exploring the galaxy, doing things kind of on their own. There are the ones that stay near the center of the galaxy, near Coruscant. There are a multitude of paths for a Jedi to be on in this era, which I think makes them a lot more interesting because it gives us a chance to explore their different relationships with the Force, which I'm hoping we get the opportunity to explore in the series. Please excuse me, I meant to say way seekers, not way finders. Different thing completely. So basically, that is the crux of episode 2: is May poisoning and killing Master Torben. Again, no closer to knowing the great secret at the core of why May is doing what she's doing. No closer to us understanding more of her relationship to the Sith, the mysterious Sith, helmeted Sith stranger with his red lightsaber. And again, the Jedi in pursuit. Did Osha let May escape? so many questions. I liked episode 2 quite a bit. Again, we're just sort of on this opening path here for the series. But I like the direction we're going. The pacing was a little off for me, but I think it was tighter in this episode than it was in the first. And maybe that's just because I was getting a little bit more familiar with it. But I really enjoyed episode 2. And I like these characters. I think we're on a good track with them. I cannot wait to see more of this mystery. And I cannot wait to actually rewatch the episodes again. We'll be back. We'll be here. I will have watched them at least once more before we reconvene to talk about episode 3 next week. So I'm going to give them 7.5 buckets. 7.5 buckets for episodes 1 and 2. Like I said, I may have liked 2 like a smidge more. Just because, again, we're sort of advancing the story. I like our little end number where we get to meet the Wookiee Jedi Master who's involved in the plot, Kelnaka. I like seeing that planet where we're on Kofar. Obviously, we'll be spending more time there. I hope that Kelnaka doesn't meet the same fate that Endera and Torben have met so far. He seems like a cool character. We haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time with Wookiee Jedi Masters in live action. That would be 0 time in live action. So Kelnaka is a character that I am greatly looking forward to. I hope we get a lot out of him. I hope he sort of joins up with our merry band of heroes in the quest to stop May and uncover the mystery of the Sith here. Will that happen? Who's to say? But I like what we've done what we've gotten so far from this series. I look forward to what is to come, and I hope you do too. Let me know your thoughts. You know where to find me. Hit me up on the socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter /X and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Another reminder to make sure that you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If there's anything I missed in episode 2, I know I sort of fast-forwarded episode 2 a little bit, but it's pretty straightforward, The Jedi are attempting to bait the hook, catch May. Doesn't go well. You know what? I should talk about... I apologize. I meant to get a little bit more into the moment between May and Master Soul. Their combat with each other was fascinating. I thought it was very well executed, very well done. And again, the emoting that Master Soul has on his face as he is trying to understand why May is doing these things. This girl that he believed dead for 16 years. Again, only adding depth to the mystery of it all. And again, very well executed, very well handled. And again, Master Soul sort of becoming like the embodiment of the Jedi for this year, this specific storyline here. I'm fascinated by the character. I want to know more about him. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the dialogue that Master Soul has about the difference between justice and vengeance. An interesting aspect of what needs to be explored between the Jedi of this period, but also for the May and Osha dynamic. Again, I'm gonna be hammering on this a lot during our reviews of this show, but May and Osha are light versus dark. They are twins in many senses, but Force sensitive twins, which is going to lead us to a lot of talking about the light and dark and justice versus vengeance. These are very Sith and Jedi-like approaches to things, and I think they will bear discussing further as we get more and more involved in the series. So hopefully I won't wear you out on it, but I think it's going to be a kind of a recurring theme as we get more and more into this show. And, of course, our mystery with the Sith. So now I will resume wrapping up the show. Thank you very much for indulging me on that. All right, friends, let's get ourselves out of here. Let's go out to the world, be great Star Wars fans, get them to watch The Acolyte and see what they think. This is an interesting period to try and bring in some new Star Wars fans because they're going to get to see something where they didn't have to watch 9 movies, and they didn't have to watch the Clone Wars, and they didn't have to watch Rebels and all that stuff. Like you can start them fresh right here, right now. Nothing you need to know about anything. Just plug them in. Pop them down in front of the TV set or in front of their tablet, in front of their phone, whatever it is. Now is a great time to recruit some new Star Wars fans. You know, you have that friend who's like, oh, I want to get into Star Wars, but there's so much. This show requires nothing. Just turn it on. All right, Bucketheads. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans. We'll talk next week. In the meantime, remember that this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.